All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to the DotA Procast. That is right, another Dota 2 Procast coming at you. And looking forward to having some fun once again today. I'm BreakyCPK, as always, joined by Donnie, aka Elevated, as the co-host. And we are here with, well, we definitely have a fair amount to talk about today. A pretty big day. Of course, the major wrapping up, and we got the next major qualifiers starting, and let's see, WESG events going on still, so we'll talk about that maybe a little bit. Probably not, let's be honest. Probably not that at all, but yeah, I mean, that's really it. Nothing else happened today, actually, so I guess not the biggest day in the world, but I couldn't hold it in. Obviously, there was a patch. The patch did hit, and now this isn't going to be a purge patch show. We're not going to sit here and go over the patch by any means. We're here to talk competitive Dota 2, so we are going to kick off with the recap and everything first. I think we'll touch on the patch a little bit later on in the show and maybe some competitive influences from the patch, if anything. But again, we're not going to spend too much time. I know both you and I have been absorbing the patch quite a bit, though, today and going over it here.
Yeah, I mean, right before I was doing this, I was recording for my YouTube channel the patch analysis with Jenkins. I've been talking for like 2.5 straight hours so far. And like, I'm not Purge. I don't break down every single little thing. Yeah. So I can't imagine what his patch analysis is going to be. It's going to be like 24 hours long or something like that.
It's going to be another long one. I was actually tuning in right before we came on here to his stream, and he was just starting Ancient Apparition. I think he just got finished with the items, and he's already been streaming for 2 hours, I want to say. So he's
gotcha.
Still got a bit to go. Anyways, again, that'll be a little bit later on, but there was a pretty big event that wrapped up, of course, that being the Kuala Lumpur Major, and so we'll focus on that as far as the earlier part of the show. And well, the major wrapped up, and of course we have our winner. It's just another season for Virtus Pro, apparently. As somebody put it, I don't even know whoever I got this from, but 11 out of the 12 months of the year lately, Virtus Pro is the best team in Dota 2. Of course, when it comes to TI, you know, having to fall a little short. But these last couple of years, they have overall been the most dominating team, and here they are winning the first major.
Yeah, I'm actually pretty surprised that they won. I did not think they were going to win this. I thought there was 3 or 4 teams that were better than them based on their recent performance, but I mean, they made a run and ended up taking out Secret, who looked unbeatable.
Yeah.
Up until the grand finals.
I think that's the biggest thing. Yeah, Team Secret, ESL champions, of course, there was a lot of, both you and I think, both favored them. I mean, there was some bias in myself that wanted to see NIP ultimately go all the way. They got 4th place. I mean, obviously a hell of a finish for them, and I think very, very worthy finish considering their situation coming into this event. But I will say, we did our predictions. I had 3 out of the 4 right. I think I had Pain Gaming as my 4th team, which... I mean, it was a stretch. I wanted to throw one in there that was a stretch. You know, they got knocked out, obviously, in that last place spot, but I thought it was fun. Who did you have the 3 teams as well? I actually forget who you predicted.
I think I had Secret, VP, EG, and LGD.
Oh, okay, that's right, yeah. So you did a little bit better.
Missed on LGD, but
all right. But yeah, Team Secret, going back to them, they, as you mentioned, they were the dominant team, and a lot of people would have expected them to perhaps win this whole thing. And yeah, going into the finals, they were still the favorite. As you see right here, they had not lost a series up until that point. That was the first series they lost all tournament between groups and playoffs. And that's the one that really mattered, though, in the end, of course. It did go 5 games. They were up 2-1. Now, it sounds like you might have stayed up and watched the first 3 games, if I'm not mistaken.
I tried to watch as much as I could. It was kind of at a weird time slot, but I stayed up and saw, let's see, I actually saw through the first half of the 4th game.
Okay.
And that's actually when I tuned out. Or actually, maybe I even started to see the bit of the last game. Yeah, but
it was late at night for you, because it's funny, but the 4th game is when I actually woke up and started watching it. So
okay, so together we've covered basically the whole thing.
There you go. But I did watch the replays. The first game, that was a mid Rasta. That was cool to see.
Yeah, I mean, Secret, they continue to kind of just like stretch the limits of what the meta is allowing for, and throughout the entire tournament they were doing that, while also, you know, throwing in the Terrorblades and the Arc Wardens. But I was impressed with how they are able to put all these kind of moving pieces together into really cohesive and well-rounded drafts, basically. Obviously, having the players that they do allows them to pull off all sorts of stuff because of the talent and the hero pools. But ultimately, turned out to just kind of be the Terrorblade show, unfortunately.
Yeah, to everyone's demise now, of course, with that patch today. We got a little bit of an answer. We'll talk about that later on, but that's what everyone was kind of saying. And, speaking of that, it's almost fitting that the final game of the series actually came down to a Terrorblade versus a Phantom Lancer matchup, because that right there was probably that had to be one of, if probably the most seen core matchup throughout this last year even. I mean, those two heroes obviously have battled it out quite a bit, and in the end, Terrorblade happened to be on the side of Virtus.pro, and obviously they took it there as a result. I will say Game 2 also turned out really interesting with the draft. Mentioned some unique stuff. Well, not really unique here in this case, but they got both Arc Warden and Broodmother on Team Secret in that grand final matchup, and they just seemed to roll over Virtus.pro with that, so...
Yeah, VP picked a Slark, so not that surprising that lost, but
that too.
VP wisened up after that. They're like, all right, let's go back to the ones that actually work.
Yeah.
PL, Terrorblade, that's about all. And interestingly, I picked Secret to win because, and the main reason I picked him to win is because they have an Arc Warden player and VP does not. There's nobody on VP plays Arc Warden. So I was actually surprised that they were able to take this, having to expend a ban on the Arc Warden every single time, basically.
It seems like the panel, and I think it definitely is justifiable, Art Zeke, the drafter for Virtus.pro, got a lot of credit on their success from this event, especially in those grand finals. I mean, you're talking about outside of maybe that Game 2 draft where, they had an Invoker in their Broodmother. They had to offlane the Invoker, I think they ended up doing, and then they picked a Slark on it was just pretty bad. But the other 4 games ended up pretty damn well off in their favor, and even the third game in which they lost, you could argue their draft did look pretty strong. I mean, hell, they picked Terrorblade, for Christ's sake, so when you pick Terrorblade, it's hard to go wrong with that, right? No, but
all you gotta do, right?
Exactly. So, but you have the players you also mentioned, and clearly both these teams definitely do. But in the end, Virtus.pro able to take it, and I do remember watching that Game 5. They had the Timbersaw pick right there for Team Secret, and it's like one of those on paper it makes sense, but mid one Timbersaw, it's not that hero that's going to allow him to be that, make those big plays from the mid necessarily. And I think we kind of saw that they had it for the matchup against DK, which, like I said, it makes sense and it was good for that, but he wasn't able to make the big plays like he's been doing for Secret in a lot of the success. So
yeah, he's definitely more of one of those players that you want to be able to move around the map as quickly as possible. And Timber is definitely a hero that kind of just like sits in the lane for a long time and occupies a very specific portion of the map, which definitely could buy the Phantom Lancer a bunch of space. But if you kind of look at that draft, you've got PL who needs space to farm up, and then you've got the TB or the Timbersaw that kind of sits in the lane, and then you have the Necrophos that also kind of sits in the lane. It looks like they were just kind of lacking a little bit of that sort of activation for their other heroes to be able to, make plays. And as you're saying, mid one in particular is a player that likes to be activated by having, a mobile playmaking hero.
Yeah.
So, I mean, ultimately, it looks like Virtus.pro just kind of stayed with their stable draft, and Secret maybe deviated a little bit too much in that last game. But, very close series, obviously, going 5 games, and
it was
between two very good teams.
It's pretty cool that, first major season, we kick off with a 5-game series, and if I'm not mistaken, the ESL event, didn't that go 5 games as well? On top of that, so I'm not going to look back. But either way, it's been a good start. I really think it did. It's been a good start to the season for the grand finals and their matches there. But yeah, there was more to this tournament than just the grand finals, and Virtus.pro winning, obviously. Although, on top of that, we kind of pointed this out going in. Again, I don't think it's 100% just yet. Technically, like, if Virtus.pro doesn't qualify for another major the rest of the season, they might not qualify for TI, but they very, very much, if they qualify for the next major and they place like half decent even, they're 100% going to TI, TI9 that is. So winning a major this season is pretty much going to put you in the spot to go to TI9.
I believe that they basically are 100% already. Like,
are they even? Okay.
The only circumstances they wouldn't make it is if they literally did not qualify for another DPC event for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
And a consistent number of teams were placing well.
So it's not 100% is what you're saying.
It's not 100%, but it's basically 100%.
Yeah, it's like telling me there's a chance, as Jim Carrey would say.
Exactly.
Yeah, but it's very unlikely. So yeah, VP, of course, not surprisingly, we're very likely going to see them at TI9, at least so far as the one team that we know will be there. But as I point out, there were other, obviously not only matches, but results, and including one that Evil Geniuses versus NIP. It was one of the more entertaining series of the event. All throughout all three games, definitely going pretty deep. I mean, you see that first game, a 65-minute battle between the teams at NIP. That was the one that they won, but then EG coming back in 2 and 3 to successfully take this series. All three games running that Terrorblade. No doubt the popular hero yet again in this event, but it's a mix here of not only a great series, but again, NIP, especially with a stand-in. Yes, a great stand-in. A good result, I think, in the end for them in top 4, and Evil Geniuses, yet another third-place finish, but at the same time, I think still a good finish for them.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm sure that they were wanting to place higher. This is EG that we're talking about. And after beating LGD 2-0, I feel like they were probably, flying pretty high. And then they beat Ninjas in Pajamas. Getting 2-0'd by Virtus Pro is pretty bizarre, but it kind of makes sense to me just based off of their play styles, where EG tends to be a little bit more slow and methodical, especially with Fly as captain, Arteezy as a core. VP, I mean, really just taking advantage of the fact that they play a higher tempo, I think, is really what it comes down to. So probably more of like a stylistic matchup than anything as far as why EG didn't make it to the grand finals.
I was trying to double check too, as far as, wasn't there a case where, I'm looking back at the dates, where EG, so they won, and they had to play back-to-back series or something too. There was some schedule in there where one of the teams had to play like back-to-back series, even despite them like just finishing a series. So I don't know if it was that one, but either way, I don't know. I guess thinking about it, it's in my mind, I see this still as a successful event for Evil Geniuses. When it comes to their fan base, when it comes to them as players, yeah, perhaps they may see this as a disappointment. But this is the first major of the season. They are still a somewhat newer team. I mean, it's still a secret to an extent. Obviously, not so much Virtus Pro, but as far as this roster coming together, it just came together just before TI8. You have to remind yourself of that sometimes. That
yeah, for sure.
It hasn't been together necessarily for that long compared to some of these other top-tier teams even. So I think a third-place finish is absolutely a success for them, and good things moving forward. They've clearly established that they are the best team in NA, and no doubt a top 5 team, let alone top 3 team in the world right now. So I think it was a success for sure.
I would agree with that. Yeah, it's a very good point that, compared to Virtus Pro, for example, they have not been around for that long. Obviously, Secret hasn't been around for that long either with this current iteration, but they've also had very recent success. So,
yeah,
I just think that, like, the brand name of EG comes with a sort of expectation, like they're supposed to win every tournament. If you're an EG fan, if you're an EG player, but obviously it's not going to happen. It never happens. And third place is nothing to scoff at. Would they end up with $100,000 in prize money plus 2,100 DPC points? So yeah, all they really need is another, top 3 finish, and they're probably going to TI as well.
Yeah, very good point. Another team that kind of has that brand on them, that high expectations, maybe unfair, even Alliance. Of course, a team that I follow and is dear to my heart, but hey, they started strong. They looked good initially. They got obviously out of their group stages in the top 2 spot, defeating Forward Gaming, and ultimately getting through past Pain X as well. But then they ran into LGD, got knocked out pretty handily, got to say, and then they lost 2-0 to TNC. It was a much closer series, but I did watch a little bit of that. Unfortunately, make some mistakes here and there. TNC, on the other side of it, did much better than I expected. I said going into this that I did not have high expectations of TNC and really Southeast Asian in general. But I got to say, TNC and Fnatic both proved me wrong to an extent. They both actually went further than I expected, so props to them for sure.
Yeah, I would say that TNC looked better than expected and Fnatic looked worse, to me anyway. I think that TNC, the main thing about this team is, like, they have a huge amount of talent on their team. That's undeniable. It's just a matter of having, like, really consistently good drafting and shot calling in the games. That always seems to be an issue for this team. So the fact that they were able to, beat Vici Gaming, for example, is a very good step in the right direction for TNC. Losing to NIP, I think that really just comes down to the fact that you have Peter drafting against Ninja Boogie and or I'm not sure who actually drafts for them, but regardless, it's PPD drafting against a team that generally hasn't had like the best drafting.
Yeah.
And then as far as Fnatic, they really just didn't look very good to me.
No.
No. I mean, they made it to the upper part of Group C.
Group C was so weak.
They beat Gambit and they beat Tigers. Like, if they didn't make it to the top 2 of Group C, then this team would be disbanding, honestly.
Yeah, we didn't get the chance to preview groups because, again, we did the podcast, and literally the day after, I think it was, not even 24 hours later, the groups came out, go figure. But, yeah, if we got the chance, that would have been one thing I would have pointed out right off the bat. I noticed right off the bat was that Group C, I'm like sitting here, what? that does not look right. The Group C seems pretty one-sided.
Especially when you compare it to Group B, where it's like, wow, all of these teams, can put up a fight against each other.
Absolutely. That's a whole other story, and the idea I still don't get why organizations just just make it a public, just have a show with it, man. Have a show, have a group stage drawing, have some fun with it, get some content out of it, and also that transparency. What's so wrong with that? I don't understand.
They should hire us to do official draws for all the tournaments.
Hey, it's a
we
deal.
Can do that. Try it out of a hat.
I'm down. Let's make it happen. Used to do it back in the Han days. It's basically the same thing, a Han event and Dota 2 Major. It's same level right there. As far as other results from this event, I guess you can also speak more region-based, where I've already mentioned how, personally, at least Southeast Asia overall did pretty well and better than maybe I expected, especially with TNC. China, on the other hand, was a little faulty. LGD, of course, they ended up losing to EG in the end, and it's nothing to be too disappointed about, but it's still they finish in that 5th, 6th place spot as a result. And then, Vici Gaming getting knocked out by TNC. And you had a case of Aster going away very early on. And who else are we missing right here? Is that it? There's only 3? I thought there would have been 4. Okay, well, the point is, none of them actually did too well. They all did lower than expectations for them, for sure.
Yeah, that's definitely fair. I think that Aster actually looked quite good during the group stages, considering that they literally changed their mid player 2 days before the tournament started or whatever it was. So in the groups, they actually looked very good, and their new mid player looked like he was, fitting in well with the team. But then losing to JStorm, not to knock JStorm, but Aster should not be losing to JStorm.
Yeah.
So that was a huge upset for them. As far as Vici Gaming, they made it to the top 2 of their group. They lost to Secret, who ultimately went to the grand finals. That's not something that you can really, dock points from them for. But then losing to TNC, to be honest, it's not really that surprising. I feel like Vici is still in a very development stage where it doesn't really feel like they have a cohesive team. It kind of feels like a pub stack to me. It's like you've got Paparazzi and Ori, who are ridiculously high skill players.
Yeah, I was just about to say.
And you have Yang, who he's kind of like old 11, where he's either goes super off or he feeds. Then you have Fade, who stood out to me on VGJ Thunder, he's had very good performances on Vici Gaming in the 4 role. And then you have DY, who's like a position 7 support player. But all of them are quite young. And so I think they're very prone. They're very prone to these kind of swingy performances. One day they play like all-stars, and one day they play, a tier 2 team.
I've heard position 6. I have not heard position 7 before. That's in the dumpster, man. That's brutal.
I think I remember one game where he was playing Bane, and he literally had Windlace and wards in his inventory at 15 minutes into the game.
That'll happen sometimes. But as you started that, I was Paparazzi Ori. I think you could argue as far as a top 5 list of 1-2 punch in lineups, they're up there, man. They would probably be in the top 5. But the supporting cast around them still trying to gel together, perhaps. But again, top 8 finish, still overall
not bad.
solid.
Especially considering the increase in overall competition level at this. And then the last one I wanted to talk about is PSG LGD. I think they showed flashes of their TI form in terms of being able to play this like ridiculously clean, destroy you game. But ultimately, you look at the teams they lost to. They lost to Secret and they lost to EG, both of which probably have, I would say, top 4 captains in the entire world. PSG LGD did not have their coach / drafter QQQ there. I think that's a huge part of why they didn't place very well. Just because, this is a meta where like it's very developed, but teams are starting to pull out these, kind of
last minute
strats.
picks.
The Arc Wardens, the 5 Brew, that kind of stuff. And if you don't have the guy who literally does your strategy for you at the tournament, you kind of have it. And Xnov, I think, was in an interview he was talking about they had prepared strategies. And I'm sure they just kind of ran out against these, top tier captains.
Yeah.
Basically.
And when you do look at the list, just like without even watching the games, it is a little underwhelming. You're right, because LG they beat Tigers and Fnatic in the group stages, and then they beat Alliance in the first round, but then they go 0-2 to Secret and Evil Geniuses. And I did actually catch the Secret versus LGD series at least. It was pretty one-sided. Secret definitely dominated them quite a bit, and LGD is almost a case of at times you could tell they just seemed off with their play style and their teamwork and everything, which was a little odd because obviously they have been a good team throughout.
And I mean, I guess the lower tier teams, the Alliances, the Tigers, the Gambits, they destroyed them, you know. But then once they get up against these high tier upper echelon teams, it's a very clear kind of like, all right, well, you don't have necessarily the strategic advantage, and we can't just outskill these teams like we were doing with the other ones. So not that surprised with their result, but still pretty good considering they didn't have like their full strength, I would say.
Unfortunate Forward Gaming had a matchup against Evil Geniuses so early on especially, but only one team was going to move on from there, and obviously EG did win in 3 games against them, so I don't know if that's a disappointing finish for. It's kind of disappointing with the placement, but considering who you got knocked out to, I guess you look at the group stages, and that's where Forward Gaming would have to be a little disappointed at. That's kind of led them there in the first place. So that's another team that maybe underperforming as far as the expectations go. But outside of that, I think it ended up playing out as expected, I guess, or not surprising even.
Yeah, I would say you kind of have to look also at Pain, maybe. I feel like Pain had a decent amount of momentum coming into this tournament, and they ended up going out in the first round. I know that both you and I were kind of talking them up a bit before the tournament started as a team that could, make a run for South America. And actually, it ended up Pain X, who was a team that we were both ranking as like the worst team at the tournament, ended up placing better than Pain Gaming.
Yeah, 1-0 over Tigers to make that happen. So
they still did it.
They won. they did win, and the whole best of 1 losers. I'm okay with it. I've always said that, especially like at TI2, I'm fine with that format. But it is a little unfortunate. You finish that bottom 2 of your group. That's where you go, and you got that 1 game to decide. So, in case of running into that, another topic to bring up on this event, though, before really moving on here is. The NIP, I think it's important to talk about with their standing situation, of course. So once again, Mind Control, obviously he did fantastic for the team. And there's no doubt there were games where he was the carry in a lot of sense. So, 3-3 has done that for them as well, though. And it was cool to see Peter basically make a tweet, and tweet longer even after the fact, and pretty much wanted to make a point that, guys, we understand Mind Control was a great sub for us, and he obviously did a lot for us, but we're still very confident with 3-3 and excited to get playing with them again. And I think that was really cool, 1, from him as a person and as a captain, but 2, it's just true, because you have these people talking now, it's like, oh, Mind Control carried them, or now they have to go back to 3-3, that sucks. It's like, I don't think that's the case. I think there are arguments to be made that it actually was worse having Mind Control as a stand-in when it comes to the team chemistry and everything. But individual performance, yes, he did do very good.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I continue to be impressed with PPD's ability to kind of navigate the esports landscape as just like a personality and a player. I think that he has like reasonably, despite the fact that he is sometimes, an abrasive person in terms of his viewpoints, I think that his like he knows when he needs to make a PR statement, when he needs to, you know, say something like this, where he can be like, not just for his team's benefit, but for 33, for Netta's benefit, where he's like, we are very confident that you are still our offlaner, despite the fact that we placed better with mind control than we did with you. And I think it's really important to publicly state that, just for the psyche of 33 coming back into the team. Because to be perfectly honest, they did not look very good when he was playing their team.
Yeah.
You know, like at ESL, they did not look very good. They didn't look like they really gelled very well together. And with MC on their team, they had this offlaner who can actually like make space for Ace instead of like trying to be the carry alongside Ace, which is kind of how 33 felt at ESL Hamburg. So I do like the fact that he came out immediately after the tournament and was like, hey, we are happy with how we're developing as a team. We still have a lot of progress that we can make. And with 33, we feel very confident that we're going to be able to make that progress as we build, you know, this like NIP dynasty that we're hoping to do.
And there is an argument to be made, you know, we'll talk about this more later on with the patch eventually, but I said the same thing after patch 7.0 especially. And this 7.2 it's not bigger, but it's somewhat on par in some ways. I mean, the game's changing quite a bit. So
it's way different.
It's a different game. So if you're a newer team or you have these new rosters and everything that are still trying to mesh together, honestly, especially in NIP's case where they also have a very experienced captain that's used to making adaptations to changes in Peter Pandam, they should be on a you know, on another level. They should have an advantage in a lot of ways over other teams where, you know, where their weakness before was that lack of chemistry. Now that's not necessarily as much of an issue because you're going into a completely different meta, completely different strategies, and on even footing in a sense with everyone else. So that's something else to think about as, you know, this patch comes out and team like NIP, and obviously a lot of these rosters are somewhat newer going into the season. Not saying that all of a sudden Virtus Pro is going to have crazy challenges at every event, but it helps out those lesser teams or the less experienced teams as of right now. So
yeah, I definitely think that NIP strikes me as a team that has a bunch of very cerebral players too that are going to be breaking down the patch and figuring out what actually works. So I'm not worried about what they're going to do over the next couple of months.
Yeah. All right, so the Kuala Lumpur Major wrapping up, and I think that means as far as for us goes, the segment on KL Major is pretty much good to go. It's production-wise and everything. It was a great event. It was a little lacking in the.
It was okay.
Yeah. Okay. So now that I'm really thinking about it and trying to think about
it was okay.
I guess I don't want to oversell it. It did have its issues. The couch setting in the arena specifically threw me off a little bit.
That was whack. I'm just gonna say, I'm just gonna say it. That was super whack. I did not like how that was set up with the panel on couches in the middle of the stage, right next to the teams who don't have soundproof booths. Like,
yeah,
I don't know, man. I understand that not every single major needs to be exactly like TI and the same setup as TI, and there's some creativity, and it's good to have some sort of differences between the events. Obviously, you don't want to have the same event a bunch of times during the year, but I don't know. I feel like everything about the major was good other than the production, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And the fact that we had literally half of the main event being played not in a stadium,
in the hotel. Yeah.
It was bizarre to me.
Could have been better. It definitely could have been better. I do agree. So yeah, we're really thinking about it now and looking back, and yeah, the having half the main event, I do 100% agree. That's almost inexcusable, frankly, because not only is that sucks for the spectators because it's a little bit of a takeaway of the spectators. It's not as hype or the people there even as far as the people buying tickets, but also for the teams. You know, heavy majority of these teams didn't get even the chance to play on a stage at the major tournament, their first major of the season, and because I think it started, I want to say, at top 6, if I'm not mistaken. So
yeah, it was literally just Secret, LGD, NIP, Virtus Pro, TNC. Wait, no, it started with TNC Vici, right?
Did it? I honestly don't remember.
I don't actually know. I think it might have just started with
the third game.
Here, I'm pulling up the YouTube video. It looks like Vici versus TNC Noah was still in the hotel.
Okay,
So,
yeah, that is ridiculous.
It was top 6, yeah.
That is, I think that's completely unacceptable for a major to only have the top 6 be at a real setting. Like, I understand that you can only rent a stadium for a certain amount of time, but
got to make it work somehow, yeah.
Yeah, and you think about it, it's like, okay, you're in Malaysia. Fnatic did not play on the main stage.
Yeah. None of the Southeast Asian, I guess
Tigers did not play on the main stage. Yeah. Like, come on, man.
Yeah, it's yeah, that was really that was pretty bad. So hopefully, moving forward to future majors, especially that is done better. And then, yeah, the no sound booths, they could hear the draft. They could hear the analysts during the draft, which obviously they're not getting strategies necessarily from them, but at the same time, it could help influence a little bit and be like, oh, that's true. There just shouldn't be the opportunity for that at all. So,
yeah, it's
clearly
like,
this wasn't fully thought out, I guess.
I mean, and it's not like the analysts are just like a bunch of random people they pull off the street. It's like these are pro players who actually have legitimate input on what people should be drafting. So
true.
I definitely think that there was some pretty mediocre production value at this tournament, despite the fact that it was a major, despite the fact that it was produced by, a PGL. Company like PGL. Although they did say that there were some other issues between working with the local producers as well. I don't want to, throw shade at anybody involved, but we're talking about the DPC season that has 5 majors, period. It's not 26 or whatever it was last year. It's 5.
Yeah.
And so I feel like the standards need to be a lot higher this year than they were last year. And so far, this would probably rank lower than any of the majors last year.
Yeah. You know what? I'm actually I did not realize this.
Storm, baby.
They actually did have a group stage drawing.
Where do I draw from now?
Okay, so
It was with Slacks and Maelstrom from Join Dota. I'm actually looking at the YouTube video right now. I'm showing it on the screen. I wasn't aware of this. This looks like it was a recorded thing. I don't think they did it live streamed.
Okay.
Maybe they did. I don't know.
This one,
Huh.
ladies
All right.
and
Well,
I don't know. Another weird thing about I don't know if this was just me, but every time that the games would end and they would go to some fill content that was made by Slacks or Malastrix or Peanut Panda, like none of it showed on Twitch for me. It was all just commercials for the entire time. So I actually didn't get to see any of like the nice fluff content or like.
Oh, really?
Sucked.
Did you not have ad block now?
I do, but it would just still play the ads anyway.
Really? I was watching it on my smart TV, so that's probably why. Actually, I don't think it works like on those devices. Huh. Interesting. Oh, all right. So yeah, some issues there, definitely. But yeah, you're right. It's 4 more majors now to go, and we'll see how they step it up in the future ones from that. But overall, it was a good event as far as the play went, as far as Dota went, and it was the last event on, of course, the patch 7.19 in that case, and now we're moving on to 7.20 and the rest of the season ahead of us here. So. Speaking of that, we do got the upcoming major now that we're going to be looking for, and where is it? Did I not have the?
It's is it? How do you say it? Chongqing. Chongqing, I think.
I did like a pronunciation thing. Let me do that again. Let's see how it says.
I feel like Q's are shas in Chinese, but I don't know.
Chongqing is how he pronounces it.
Yeah. Chongqing.
Okay.
Chongqing. That's what I'm going with. Anyways. Yeah, so the Chongqing major is so weird to say. Stupid American accent. The next major that will be in China is going to be taking place. When is that taking place? Pull up the Wikipedia real quick. It's in January?
January, yep.
Late January, it looks like. January 19th, of course, another $1 million prize on the line, everything. Also a team coming from the Bucharest Minor, worth reiterating. Of course, that minor tournament. But the regional qualifiers start. Is where we're getting at for this. They start this next coming weekend, I believe, on Sunday. It's going to be, as usual as it's been. We have 3 days where it's 3 regions, and then the next 3 days are 3 more regions. So we do not know the breakdown yet as far as how many teams from each region. So that is something we can speculate on.
Oh, really?
Unless I've missed it somewhere, because I've been going through Wikipedia and I was talking to some others about it. I don't see any information on that yet.
It still says 3 TBDs, doesn't it? Interesting.
Yeah. So
I would have to imagine one goes to China just because it's in China.
Wait, what are we talking about? What? I'm talking about how many teams from each region get a spot at the major.
Yeah,
at the major.
That's what I'm talking about too. Because there's 3 to be determined spots, right? Every region gets 2, and then there's 3 additional slots.
Oh, that's where you're saying. Okay, gotcha. That's how you.
So I would imagine that one of those additional slots has to go to a team.
Yeah.
I would imagine that another one probably goes to a European team, and then the third one, it's either NA or Southeast Asia.
That I think is because the way NA finished at this event with their results, I think it's hard to give 3 to NA. And I think we mentioned we did talk about that, didn't we? How when they did announce for the first major that we both thought that it was almost a little ridiculous that they got 3. Now I thought CIS arguably that's right. I'm kind of thinking back. I think CIS potentially could be a candidate for that 3rd team. However, the Gambit finish at this event and how they looked kind of scares those chances away, I suppose. I still stand by overall competition. CIS is really good, in my opinion. So, but yeah, with the Gambit performance, it is tough to sell that over Southeast Asia.
I think you just go 4 to Europe.
You could do that.
4 to Europe, 1 to China, and move on. Like,
dude,
Alliance, Liquid, OG, NIP, Secret.
Yeah.
How are only 2 of these teams or 3 of these teams going to go?
Yeah, that's true. That's one of those where it's like you could see 4 teams actually competing in the major and doing well. Because, yeah, you have NIP and Secret that just got top 4 at this major. You have Liquid, of course. We all know, and you have OG, of course, like the returning 2 TI champions. So,
yeah, and then Alliance had a reasonably successful performance at the well. So it's like,
God, would they do that? Would they actually give 4?
I can't really justify any other region getting a 3rd one. If I look at it, like SEA, I mean Fnatic, I guess, and TNC. I mean, I suppose like Low Tech looks pretty good. If you look at the SEA qualifiers, they actually have a bunch of pretty good teams. Mineski, Low Tech, Tigers, TNC Predator, Fnatic. So it's probably going to be 3 Europe, 3 China, 3 SEA.
No more Mushi.
I think the argument is there for 4 Europe just based on the teams that are there.
I'm with you. Clearly, though, Valve does have business in mind, and we know that with South America specifically how they're getting 2 spots, even though don't think that should be, as far as the integrity of the event and everything. Don't know if that's necessarily what they should be doing, but again, from the business perspective, it makes sense. So, continuing on with that line of logic, yeah, I think they'll probably go with a 3rd team from Southeast Asia, almost like an award for another award for Tigers winning the minor and thus qualifying for the major. I guess you could look at it that way too. It's like, well, you're also earning Southeast Asia another spot for the next major. So, yeah, I guess that could be the way to sell it. But yeah, if they happen to do 4 teams for Europe, I think that is the most. I
don't really feel like you can complain about that. Honestly.
Yeah, exactly. You can't. It would make the qualifiers a little less appealing in that sense, though. So maybe there's that.
Yeah. You're kind of just like, all right, well,
Yeah, which of the 4th teams is not going to make it? Is it going to be the OG with the no Ana, or Liquid that hasn't played in 10 years? It feels like, who knows? But
all
right, well, it's getting a closer look. We'll start with Europe. We were talking about them anyway, so. Yeah, you got the big name teams. You have Alliance, as you mentioned. But then you have a couple of open qualifier teams. I was actually casting the open qualifiers. It was pretty fun. Let's be frank, though, not expecting much of these teams. Vega Squadron, solid. Still think they have a lot to work on as far as teamwork goes. The Final Tribe, they've been disappointing for me this season. But on top of that, this is a very, very difficult quality teams here. So I'm not expecting them to all of a sudden just bring it together and do very well here. And then Hippomaniacs. Let me talk about these guys for a second. These guys,
Sure.
Hippomaniacs, they've been pretty fun to watch. There was another, when I was at the BTS studio last month, for, I forget what random event that was, they actually did very well in that event, surprisingly. And they were impressive and a fun team to watch. Supreme, their mid player, he was a crazy good Morphling player amongst a couple of other heroes. So now with all of that said, I expect them to finish last place most likely. But, you know, it's good to see them in this in these qualifiers and getting some experience here.
Yeah, I mean, what better place to get experience than in the European qualifiers for a major right now?
Yeah. So, I'm sure it's a thrill for them just to know that they're going to compete against the best of the best in the world even, let alone Europe. So, yeah, not much else to say there, I guess. We see, again, we don't know how many teams. If it is 3, I think NIP and Secret is the lockdown, of course, as far as the 2 of the teams. As far as the third team goes,
I'd have to go Liquid, personally.
Liquid, yeah.
I mean, you touched on it. I guess we could probably just talk about this briefly, but Ana is no longer part of OG.
Yeah. So since we are, yeah, let me pull that up real quickly. He did announce, this was earlier today, right? I think it was. So.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, he announced kind of an official statement through OG. He wants to do other stuff. I've heard rumors that he wants to go to culinary school and become a chef. But just simply doesn't really have the passion to grind it out in Dota. I think that was pretty clear based on how he left OG before, and then took a bunch of time off. And that's totally fine, man. He just made a bunch of money. He can do whatever the hell he wants. But I would have a hard time ranking OG above NIP, Secret, Liquid, even perhaps Alliance at this point, because it's yes. Top's an incredible player. Obviously, Jarek's incredible. Fucking Mad played very, very well. And No Tail is one of the best long-term performance players probably in Dota and HON history. But I would have to give MVP of TI to Ana, and he's no longer on the team.
Yeah.
And they've taken, a 3.5-month break? So I can't expect these guys on a new patch to suddenly show up and be way better than
I still stand by. Yeah, OG was not the best team at TI last year. It just everything came together, and now on top of them not having their carry player, like we're mentioning, it's hard to think that they would be moving on. But hey, it was hard to think they were going to win TI8 last year. To be fair, so
it's true.
Who the hell knows, right? It's honestly just cool that they're finally back, and we're going to actually get to see them again, as well as Liquid for that matter. And I mentioned this the last major qualifiers. Thank God they changed the format this year with no invited teams to the main event. It makes the qualifiers that much more appealing, that many more storyline. It's so good that we get some great Dota in these qualifiers. So obviously,
there's actually a reason to watch qualifiers for once.
Exactly. Yeah, big reason, because you really don't know in a lot of cases. We don't want to spend too much time, breaking down every single region necessarily, but we can kind of just fly through here. Southeast Asia, got that tab up right now. Obviously, again, it's a matter of will they have 2 or 3 as we're debating right here. Mineski, I did point out, Mushi, he announced his retirement from the team. I believe he's still interested in playing competitive Dota, but at least he left the organization last I heard. Other than that, it's your typical cast. You mentioned Lotac and the roster that they have, so we'll see how that breaks down in Southeast Asia. But any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I have a hard time ranking Fnatic at this point just because they really didn't seem very inspired. I heard rumors that maybe there's some internal problems with the team. I'm still less than impressed by MP as a carry player. And so I don't know. I guess probably Lotac, Fnatic, Tigers, and TNC are the top 4. I can't see it Mineski doing very well, but who knows? Maybe net changing from Mushi will change the team, but they didn't look very good to me at all. So,
all right, China.
Who knows?
Moving on to that region, we do expect 3 teams, and okay, never mind. There's not really much to talk about this region yet, because
I would say those 3 teams are probably the ones that qualify.
Yeah, good point. I know. Yeah, China. A lot of the teams in China are going through some changes right now, aren't they? I know IG. I just heard even recently is making some possible changes, so they're still trying to figure out what the hell's going on over there China. So.
These are the top 3 teams in China. They'll probably be the top 3 teams to qualify from the Chinese
Age
qualifier.
Cup Season 10 winner. What is this? It's a 16-team. Holy crap! It's like a huge round-robin tournament. Interesting.
What if LGD or Aster wins this?
I assume they just give it to whoever finishes highest. That's not only qualified, but
right.
That's a good point actually. But yeah, you still have Newbie. Newbie's a team, by the way, in China.
They are
runner-up TI7. They're still pretty good. Triple C's on that team still.
Yeah, Keen as well. They've got Old Chicken, 11, Kaka.
Seems like a good roster, man. Royal Never Get RNG. We can't forget about them actually. They had a very good performance in the minors, so. I would expect to see them ultimately at the regional qualifiers.
Yeah, I definitely think they'll make it to regionals.
Yeah,
I think that September is a very good addition to their team.
Oh, true. Yeah, 3-4-3 no longer. Okay, so that's China. CIS, as I keep going back to, I think overall very good competition. Of course, you have the big dog Virtus Pro. They're at least getting one of the seeds. It's likely going to be 2 total, so then. That's my problem with having CIS only get it 2, right? It's like you already have one. That's just absolutely no one to qualify.
Yeah, but I don't know. I wouldn't rank Navi, Spirit, or Windstrike any higher than any of the SEA teams.
I would. But yeah, they did do decent at the major, so I can't keep going back to that, I guess.
But I would say those are the next 3 teams that you look at. Gambit made it to the major, but I don't think that they look better than these other 3 rosters to me.
There was an old school Fly to Moon team. It's like they named themselves Fly to Moon. They played in the open qualifiers. They actually played against Windstrike in the open qualifiers. It was Dendy stood in for that team with DK Phobos and I forget the other players on the team, but. Windstrike won the game. I actually casted that match. It was a good one, but Windstrike won that one. So, but yeah, Spirit I've always been kind of sold on as well. I've always liked Biver as a player, old school Han player, and 9 he's always been on the top of the rankings in Europe when it comes to
Oliver too. I think
Oliver as well. Yeah, definitely. So Spirit is most certainly a scary team. I know Navi and they looking decent at the minor, so we'll see who moves on there. But no doubt Virtus Pro. Already went over Europe. South America, I mean, it's Pain, and then who really knows? I mean, it's Pain X probably, but...
It's probably Pain X. I would say Infamous probably has a decent chance. I think that their roster probably will come together pretty well. I think with the addition of Schofield, they have that like really good playmaking ability out of their 4 all of a sudden. So I would say Infamous can challenge Pain X for that slot, but it's most likely Pain +1 out of here.
Yeah, it has to be Pain. It's almost like, to me, it's similar to a Virtus Pro situation where it's like they're absolutely going to move on. There's really no chance they don't unless a complete hiccup happens. So,
right.
North America, again, if our expectations are correct, believe we're only going to go down to 2 teams now for North America. I really would find it hard to believe that they're going to get 3 again.
Yeah,
so
it's got to be Forward EG.
Yeah,
I don't feel like it's even close. I mean, you have EG top 3 at the major, Forward Gaming. I can't imagine this roster does not beat these other teams.
What complexity? We Limp and Z-Freak alone, man.
Yeah, 5v2.
I got this.
You get the extra gold from only having 2 players in the game, so. Maybe they can snowball it with some like crazy TA plus IO combo.
No,
or something like
you
that.
play Bounty Hunter, and you just steal all the gold from everyone now.
You steal the gold, yeah.
We're getting ahead of ourselves. Yeah, that's a whole nother story. That's one of those, I mean, we talked about earlier with OG. I mean, complexity, in case you missed it, it was announced early in fact, I did pull up the article. Eternal Envy and... Snake King no longer part of the team. It was actually their decision apparently to leave the team, and then Skem was put on inactive essentially. We saw this coming when the whole debacle played out, and he said what he did on during the match. And being the organization that it is, it's not surprising to see them not risk any further damage to their brand. So Skem, he's put on inactive, but really it means he's going to need to look for another team if he wants to play competitive Dota.
Yep. Pretty much, they're keeping their core, the 2 complexity players that they feel like they can really build around. Z Freak and Limp, obviously very talented mid player, very talented position 4. I sincerely hope that we see Z Freak back on the 4 and not playing Ogre every game.
Oh my god, that hurt.
And I mean, I guess we can talk about like Envy. He's playing on Team Doggies. He's qualified for this qualifier with Fear, Nate King. Envy is the carry, JO is 2, and Monkeys Forever is their off laner. So probably not that serious of a team, but I mean, these are all players that everybody knows.
Good players. Again, I still think it's overall EG and Forwards Gaming tournament to lose, but
Doggies is probably better than Complexity is right now.
Yes, they are better than Complexity. I give you that, Donnie. A 2-man roster, which that's. They have when do these ones? They start the 28th, so it's the later ones. So yeah,
who is going to be on this team?
Exactly. Well, it's the same thing for OG. We didn't even talk about that. Like speculating. I mean, as far as carry players go, like who do you have? You have Mushi. You have Black. Black's the one that I keep putting out there. That
for OG.
Well, honestly, or Complexity. I mean, but OG as well. It seems like that'd be a team he'd fit into very well. He's a very He's great at communicating. Great knowledge. Very experienced, so he's one that I keep on putting out there, seeing if teams will pick him up eventually. Because I know that he is looking for a team. I've talked to him about it before. It's just he wants to find the right team.
It'll be interesting to see if I've seen a lot of people on Reddit asking for Gork to be picked up by OG.
That's just a streamer thing. I don't know.
Probably won't. He's a very good player, but I think that OG really needs to have an experienced carry player to allow Thompson to do his thing. To be perfectly honest, I wouldn't be that surprised to see like BSJ end up on Complexity.
People keep saying that, and my response to that is, unless BSJ is willing to quit his full-time streaming career, they will not have him on the team. And they might be talking about that, and if that's the case, sure, but there is absolutely no way that a team like Complexity would take in a player like BSJ and expect him to perform well for their team when he's full-time streaming. It's just too much of a distraction. It takes too much time away, and I don't know if he would want to do that. I really don't. He's a talent right now. He's just like Kyle is. People have brought that up too. It's like Kyle's going to come back to Complexity. No, it's not happening, guys. Breaking news. It's not happening for several reasons. One, the biggest, I think, it's because he's made a clear point that he loves being a talent, and he loves doing what he's doing. He's absolutely good for it, and he has a job basically every month, multiple jobs even, going to these events. So I don't see that happening either. The BSJ, again, it's pending if he's willing to give up that streaming career, which I don't know if he is necessarily. So
yeah, I mean, filling in this Complexity roster is going to be a really interesting thing. I feel like it's going to end up being a pretty international team. Like, that's the only thing that I can really think of. Because if you look at the NA talent pool, I mean, who do you really feel is who's the 5? That's the biggest question for me. Like, what captain could you possibly bring into this team?
Ike's Mike, time to return.
No comment.
No, not even a chuckle or anything. That was just straight face. Like, how dare you? How dare you even try to bring that name up? Hey,
he can't. He's playing on Team. The infamous team.
He's going to WSG, by the way. They qualified.
So. WSG.
Got that going for them. Okay, yeah. Anyways, enough about We've done our 5 minutes of Complexity on the podcast. We can move on now. It's we have to every podcast. I understand obligation here, but that's good. Okay, I guess that's all the region. So yeah, we don't know the breakdown just yet, but as we're speculating, 4 for Europe would be great. I think it's going to be 3 for Southeast Asia. Probably would be the best guess, outside of maybe CIS, as I mentioned. But
yeah, we'll find out in the next probably 3 to 4 days, because the qualifiers start very soon.
Yeah, they do. And I was planning to talk about the roster changes, but obviously we just did that already. So I don't think there's really anything else that's important concerning the competitive news. I'm just double checking Wikipedia real quickly. Anything is worth mentioning? We've talked about WSG again. I want to wait till that's all figured out before we really take another look at that. But Dota, there was that news. Summit 10, there was a little bit of drama there where Forward Gaming. They won the King's Cup North America region, a qualifier for the Summit 10 event, and they announced last week sometime that they were going to have to bail because instead they're playing in what's called the Megafaun Winter Clash, which is one of these kind of out-of-nowhere events, but holy crap, I mean, you got some pretty good teams. You got LGD, Liquid, Secret, Virtus Pro, and they're going to have a close qualifier team, which I believe we'll find out by tomorrow. So, but Forward Gaming decided they want to play in this instead. It's one of those cases it's like, okay, it's $300,000 prize pool. There's only 6 teams. And as I pointed out, I think this is also this organization, which happens to be also one's Epicenter, or they helped throw on the Epicenter event. They're probably paying them, honestly. I
was going to say there has to be an appearance fee for this team.
Yeah, there's very likely an appearance fee for all these teams. So from that perspective, from a business side, again, I bring up, and I get it, but it's definitely shitty to do by them after qualifying for such a prestigious event that is Summit. Honestly, it's a really good event. So
yeah, I'm confused by the Wikipedia Dota Summit 10 thing right now. It only has 2 teams. Is that actually the case?
Yeah, they haven't announced any other teams. I don't believe so.
So literally just 2 teams playing each other for Summit.
Well, no, I mean there's going to be more teams.
Okay.
Yeah. No,
that's like, wait, what?
I mean, I don't think that's. I think that they just have.
Says the event's pretty soon. It's like in less than a month.
It's in less than a month. Yeah. Hopefully they have that figured out in less than a month on which teams are going to participate. I mean, this seems like one of those events that it's not hard to sell teams on, honestly, right? I mean, hell, VP's been the last like 3 or 4 years, and you got a lot of these prestigious teams liking to come back to Southern California and play some Dota and hang out. So.
Yeah, obviously BTS takes very, very good care of the teams when they are there.
Yeah.
And I mean, I will say though that if you're Forward Gaming and you're going to this Megafaun event, you can't ask for a better warm-up event for the next major.
Mm-hmm.
You know, based on the teams that are there.
If
they take it seriously, which I assume they will, because it's a pretty big prize.
Oh, it's a boot camp really for all these teams. They're getting paid to play at a boot camp against the best competition in the world. Like I agree. It's actually a very big deal in that sense. So I don't know what the format's going to be. I assume it's only 6 teams. I mean, hopefully it's a group stage so everyone plays each other, which would be cool. But
yeah, maybe like what's it called? The round robin.
Yeah,
where every team plays like a BO2 and then you get seeded off of that.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that makes sense.
That would be fun. But, yeah, we don't really have much more information on that event. Again, other than it's going to be in early December, the Megafaun Winter Clash, as it's being called there.
Closed qual will probably come out of Europe/CIS qualifier, I would imagine. Just because it's easier to get those visas, I would think.
Well, I'm looking at the teams, actually, on Wikipedia. According to this, NIP is even in the list. I mean, you got TFT, Vega, NIP, Windstrike. Yep. So yeah, this is some legit teams.
Yeah, I mean NIP probably looking for every opportunity to get practice reps in with their squad.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Okay, so, but yeah, I think that's pretty much it though for events going on. Oh, I keep doing this. Oh, other than this one thing, DPL does start in 2 days. So. The China League, we got that to look forward to. So by the next podcast, we can start kind of taking a look at that and seeing how it's playing out. But this is this fun league that they always do in China that allows all the teams to compete against one another in a group stage format. And then eventually, usually there's not only a prize pool, but it leads them into something. In this case, that might not be the case. There might not be an event, but either way, that starts soon. All right, Patch. I think that's where we're at now. Again, I don't want to sit here doing a breakdown on the patch. We both have been looking over quite a bit. I think maybe just off the top of our heads, if there's anything that makes sense to talk about. Well, I mean, first, the map change rework is obviously going to be a pretty big deal.
Yeah, map changes is huge.
Maybe I should pull up the game real quick. Let me just do that.
So the map change is huge. Basically, as you're doing that, I'll explain what it is. Essentially, you have a lot more high ground in your now. So if you lose your tier 1 tower, you can defend your jungle as instead of just immediately switching to that kind of like vertical breakdown where Dire takes tier 1 bottom, Radiant takes tier 1 top, and suddenly Radiant's playing on the left side, Dire's playing on the right side. Now with all this high ground around the shrine area, it seems like it's a lot easier to kind of defend your own jungle against the other team. And that also allows Dire to maybe control Roche better. So I think that the map changes are going to be a massive, massive part of the next meta developing, and are going to dictate also that plus the deny mechanic. Deny is no longer getting rid of experience. Thank God for that.
Now they do gold.
They do gold, which is a sort of big deal if you're dominating a lane, but it's going to allow heroes like Darkseer to be relevant again. You're going to see 3/1/1s again. You're probably still going to see 2/1/1s or 2/2/2/1/2s, but 3/1/1 is definitely still relevant. You're going to see stacking happening even more.
Yes. They increased the bounty for that as well on the stacking.
Yep, and just the fact that you can defend the stacks better in your own jungle because you can defend those camps because it's high ground, it's right next to a shrine. The way that the game is going to be played is going to change quite a bit. And that's not even talking about the hero changes, which are numerous. Numerous, and item changes numerous as well.
There's a couple in there. All right, I'm loading in right now. To me, the initial changes that I saw with the map and some of the other changes within the game, there's two things that I really got from it was the possibility that, first off, that they want roaming to really be a thing. Like, roaming is a pretty big deal with how the map is set up and a couple of the changes. But also possible jungle. I wonder if that's going to be brought back a little bit. Let's see.
We'll see. I mean, they did buff the amount of bounty that jungle camps give you, but I don't think it's enough to make it close enough to the lane creeps.
So I'm kind of going through right now, but this is what we're talking about with the uphill terrain now in the jungle. The ancient spawns over here now, rather than in a vulnerable spot more north. So, yeah, it kind of gives you this triangle here.
I personally really like this map change. I feel like it takes away that sort of like flow charty. Okay, now 15 minutes into the game, we have to split the map vertically.
Yeah,
it's like we can decide that we want to just hold our jungle for a while, and you can do that because you have high ground advantage, and high ground advantage around the shrine is one of the worst places for the enemy team to take a fight. So I'm actually a big fan of the map changes, and I'm very curious to see how professional teams interpret their ability to basically, manipulate how things go. The fact the lanes are all now like at the base level of the terrain and everything else is kind of high ground from there seems like a pretty interesting concept.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm right now, I'm standing at the tier 2 Dire Tower in the bottom lane, and I'm standing uphill behind the tower essentially right here. So again, it's something you couldn't do before, but that goes back to my roaming point that it seems like they're really incentivizing that quite a bit. And there's stairs right here that can even lead you behind. So, very interesting changes there. Another one that stood out to me was going all the way over here. I don't know if you looked at the bounty rune spots too closely, but the Radiant left and the Dire right side, those are pretty symmetrical. But the Dire left side,
I feel like that's going to get patched. That looks like a mistake to me, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like,
when you compare it to the other side,
why is there one in the river and the rest of them are up higher?
Exactly, and it's like double up right here. So, but then that's my biggest thing is that it's not symmetrical whatsoever with the other side. Like the other side, there's no uphill on either side, at least close, and it's not in the river as you point. Yeah, I agree. This seems like almost an oversight somehow. I don't know how they oversighted this, but it seems odd. That was one thing where I was like, what the fuck is going on here? Oh, yeah, then the tier 2 middle tower on the Radiant side, the positioning. It's a little different, too. It's more on the right side rather than over here on the left. So, I don't know why. That seems like one of those, I guess, with the creep, maybe it's the same meetup that it would be on the Dire tier 2 tower. That's the only thing I can think of.
Very, very out of place.
It does, doesn't it? It's just like smack dab in the middle almost, or like a little bit. Yeah, it looks odd.
It looks like they like took the tower to the side to like reformat some of the trees there, and then forgot to move the tower back when they launched.
You might have something Could you
That's
imagine?
literally what it looks like to me. Like, it looks so
Kinda
out of
does.
place to just be in the random middle of the lane.
Kind of does. I think to me, it seems like they wanted to make this entrance over here to the right a little less appealing to come into, because we see the Dire team a lot of times like abuse this, that the tower is way over here. They can like kind of come in from the side, but now you can't do that as effectively. So maybe that's the logic, but I don't know, because that, from what I could tell, that was like the only actual tower movement change. Every other tower seems like it's in the same spot.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right, not much else though. There's a second Roshan now, but that's not it. No, I'm just kidding. It's only one Roshan still, but
Grimstroke now in captain's mode, so we'll be seeing that during the qualifiers for sure. I know that basically all high MMR games have Grimstroke in them, and have for the last since he was released. He was nerfed somewhat, but definitely not enough to make him irrelevant. So expect to see a lot of Grimstroke being picked up over the next couple of weeks.
Yes. As you mentioned, he was nerfed, but yeah, exactly. It's one of those, like, do really people know what's going on with him in the competitive scene yet? So we're going to see him tried for sure. It was similar to Dark Willow and Pangolier most recently. When they first came out, we definitely saw them a fair amount, and Monkey King even before that, but changes do happen and stuff. But yeah, I'm with you. If anything, as a caster, I'm just simply excited for the unique mechanic of his ultimate and the synergy that people are going to come up with, and what they can, how they can abuse it even with certain skills. So that to me is the exciting thing of that hero and seeing it. Yeah, again, we didn't necessarily like talk about or go over what exactly we wanted to talk about. What if there's like, here, we could do this. We could do like 3 things each that we wanted to bring up that may affect competitive when it comes to like, I mean, obviously all these are going to affect competitive, but you know, you get the point. We don't want this to be a long ass podcast as far as just talking about the patch here. Purge is already taking care of that for us himself.
Yeah, man. Once this is over, I gotta go record the last 25 heroes so I can get it up on YouTube as well. But yeah, okay. So top 3 things from this patch. I mean, we've already talked about the map, so I guess we'll go top 3 heroes items. Number 1 is Holy Locket, is one of the most insane items that's been introduced to the game since Aether Lens, when it was spell amp and magic resistance and cast range. It just does way too much for what it gives you. It has very easy buildup, and every single part of the item is useful to basically every hero in the game. So Holy Locket is insane. We're going to see that in every game, just like we saw Spirit Vessel in every game.
Yeah. And it requires the new item, too, the Ring of Tarrasques on top of that, as you mentioned. And
yeah, which is also an insane item.
Yeah.
And then as far as heroes, I would say that the Drow strat is kind of dead, and it's going to be replaced by the Luna strat for early push.
Yeah, I saw that.
Because Luna's Lunar Blessing now gives the base stats to heroes. So if you have a bunch of strength heroes, they suddenly just double their health when Luna is near you.
Yep.
And you're just going to roll down lanes with that. And then the other thing is that there's going to be a lot of really OP heroes, because there was a ton of ability reworks, and basically all of them made a ton of heroes extremely, extremely strong.
Anti-mage?
So, I'm not as big of a fan of the anti-mage thing as I am of some of the other stuff, like the bounty hunter. I mean, for example, sounds ridiculous. Stealing gold, tracking out of invisibility. Chaos Knight sounds insane to me. Dazzle sounds insane to me.
I love the Dazzle changes. Yeah, I love it. As a Dazzle player, I was so hyped for that. 50% cooldown reduction, just static.
It's so broken. I mean, here's the thing, 50% cooldown reduction on Drow was broken, and now you can get 50% cooldown reduction on Dazzle at 18.
Yeah. And which we were doing some testing with this. If you get like a pretty farm late game Dazzle, you have an Ags with an Octarine core. It basically is permanent shallow grave uptime on everyone around you. So even with just an Octarine core, it's only one target, but you basically have permanent shallow grave on one target just with an Octarine core. It's like a 0.6 second downtime, I think. So less than a second. And
you're constantly refreshing the negative armor.
Exactly, and you're constantly refreshing the negative armor. This Dazzle change is absurd. I love it. I love it.
It was already a strong hero. We were seeing it picked up quite a bit at the major, and it was really not nerfed at all. I mean, mana cost increased on Poison Touch, but you could cast that 1,000,000 times anyway. I think a couple other heroes that are going to be extremely relevant. Keeper of the Light.
Oh god, that new ability. Yeah. Did you try
Shout
that
out
in
to
game?
Dota 1. Yeah, shout out to Dota 1. Ignis Fatuus was in Dota 1. It summoned a Wisp that was basically a second hero that you could split push with, and summoned, I think, like skeletons or something that would push lanes for you. But it had a global. It was basically Wisp. It had a global teleport, and you could put it in any lane and just like push lanes with it.
I remember that. I remember never wanting to play Kotl because of that whole micro aspect and how annoying that was. But oh man, I totally forgot about that. That's right.
Yeah, OD sounds broken as hell to me. Like Arcane Orb, you never run out of mana anymore. It does splash damage.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess I'm kind of just going over all these heroes now, but
there was some fun. I mean, it's fun.
There's a lot of really cool changes, and a lot of the heroes. I mean, hey, they didn't really change Terrorblade other than it can't pierce spell immunity. But guess what? They added a mana cost, and that didn't make any difference. That being said, they buffed a lot of heroes, and one of the reasons that TB, Phantom Lancer, and Arc Warden were the only viable carries, and Morphling, of course, was that all the other heroes were terrible. So we have a lot of nice changes to a lot of the heroes. A lot of the stuff sounds like Slark is broken as hell to me. You know, Hex is dispellable now. A lot of the items and changes to the map and stuff benefit Slark a lot. I'm sure we'll see him.
True. And he just gets permanent agility every time he gets a kill. Like,
yeah, he's literally Pudge, but for Agi.
Well, they added several of those because they added one to Underlord and they added one to Lion. Yeah, Underlord with the attribute he just gets +5 damage just because, and then Lion's +50 damage on his spell every time he gets a kill with it, which sounds pretty insane, but interesting direction they're going. Yeah, something you mentioned on there, it seems like Dota has a history of doing this, and what's called power creeping, I think is the kind of a term that's used in balancing, where the idea that rather than nerfing set heroes like the Terrorblade, which, didn't really get many changes, they just buff everything else up around them, and it can get out of hand in some cases, but at the same time, it's more fun ideally for the players playing those set heroes, and no matter what hero you play, you're going to have fun, and it will be powerful in one sense or another. So that's kind of the ultimate logic there.
Yeah, I mean, scrolling through this stuff, like I see so many random things where I'm like, that sounds really broken. The fact that Mischief on Monkey King, it's just a free ability that allows you to manta dodge stuff.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
Like, what?
They made it a 20-second cooldown now, but
how is that a thing? How can you just randomly manta dodge stuff for a free ability? I would say the only hero that looks like complete doo-doo is Lich.
Really?
I think that getting rid of Sacrifice just ruins this hero completely. Sinister Gaze sounds like one of the most useless I've ever seen.
The fact that his channel is annoying. I didn't realize that initially. I actually went to test him, and the being channel was pretty annoying.
Very low cast range, channeling ability. Like, you basically have to be in the middle of the fight channeling to disable one hero. Like, sounds bad.
His intelligence did get buffed a bit to make up for him having more use spells like this now too, though. And I do like the Frost Shield change. I think that's more of an appeal. It's definitely more of an interesting idea than just simply ice armor. The hero was boring. That's what I think was the biggest problem with the Lich. It was just boring across the board. Sacrifice, armor, like just simple nuke that doesn't even stun. Like, it was a very boring hero outside of his ultimate. So that's what they did here. Clearly, they're like, all right, we got to spice it up a little bit with Lich. So.
Speaking of spicing things up, Brewmaster, like what does this hero even do now? There's so much stuff going on in his abilities, and I'm sure that we will see some fire strats being pulled out by Secret in the near future.
See, that
for sure.
That stood out to me. I went over this when I was going on my stream earlier. I wonder if this is going to start to be a theme moving forward with some patches. Not only with the plus whenever you kill a hero, you just get a static status we mentioned earlier, but in this case, how you use a fire spell on what he has his Cinder Brew on, and it does a dot as a result, or so whatever, it's more effective. So as you're pointing out, these fire strat lineups, are we going to see that for Frost lineups in the future? Is there going to be like an Earth? Like, are they going to be these themes now that start coming out? That's very curious to me that they're doing this.
Maybe it's possible.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I guess my last thoughts on the patch are that Abaddon is probably the best hero in the game, followed very closely by, I honestly think that Huskar is insane with his new abilities. Like, they gave him an AoE halberd.
Yeah. That also knocks people back. And
yeah, they gave him a gusting halberd on what's the cooldown? Like 12 seconds.
12 seconds, yeah.
And he doesn't even have to go halberd anymore. He just itemizes purely strength and has like a full heart running at all times when he's low.
He can be bursted by magic now, unlike before. So that is the one kind of downside. But yes, overall, his skill set does look really strong now.
Yeah, I'd say he looks insane. I would say that I'm actually very curious about Night Stalker.
Yeah.
Whether he can come back into the meta because of the changes there. But yeah, just generally speaking, it seems like a massive power creep for basically all of the heroes, and then they'll probably incrementally nerf stuff again. That seems to be the process of just making everything really strong and then kind of like bringing it back to a baseline.
Oh, we got another break effect. Nyx Assassin Vendetta can now break heroes. That was a fun one to see too. Always down for more niche things. And then last one. There's like obviously so much here, but the Ogre Magi, the multicast working on items. That's been a popular one on Reddit already, where it works with Hanamitis. What's that?
Oh, it does?
Yeah, it works with Hanamitis.
Interesting. I was gonna say him plus Grimstroke. You just like double Dagon.
Oh yeah,
the double Dagon targets already.
That would be ridiculous.
Quad Dagoning people.
Yeah. No, but it works with Hanamitis, so you can potentially Midas 4 creeps at once, and all of a sudden you just get a crap ton of gold. So it's. They made changes here, and again, my overall reaction to this after finally reading it all, and I'm happy with it. I think it was genuinely it's a fun patch. It's what we're looking for, spicing things up, as I'm using the term, and there was a lot more reworks than I expected. I thought it was going to be more just simple balance on talents and stuff, but they're not afraid to rework a lot of these heroes and add new abilities, take some out, even take out Ring of Acula. Which is, I think, overall a win for everyone. It was an item that was just seen on every core in the laning phase, so got boring. There you go. Plenty of stuff.
I'm always a huge fan of these big changes because it really, really does shake up the game. I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of the heroes are going to play very similar to what they played before with, some tweaks. The lanes, you still have to deny, you still have to last it well, you still have to take Roche, you still have to hit towers. The game is at its core the same, but the way in which you approach the problem of actually winning a game of Dota is going to be significantly different to what you might have done before, which is a nice way to refresh a game that's been around for like 15 years if you include Dota 1.
Teams have a week, some less than that even, to prepare for that major qualifier now with this patch, so going to be grinding, and I'm actually Oh, yeah, but you might be joining me. I'm casting tomorrow. Okay. You're going to be joining me. So.
Just a few hours. I'm just going to play Artifact until we cast tomorrow, probably.
Right on. No, it's it starts a little bit earlier on, 7 a.m. Eastern for me. So, but playing is 3 best of 3s tomorrow. So it's an online event. It's competitive Dota. There's actually some solid teams in it. Some of the European CIS teams in it. That looking forward to casting because not only some good competition, but obviously that's going to really be the first matches on this new patch here. So that's kind of a cool thing. That's going to be I don't know what to expect, man. It's going to be crazy. But I want to start playing some Dota. I'm going to do that here in a little bit. I want to try it out for myself as well. I know you probably do too. So we are going to be wrapping this up. That pretty much concludes it. So anything else before we do Elevated?
No, I mean, just go enjoy the patch. Like, feel free to tweet at me or Breaky and let us know what you think about the new patch, how you think it's going to affect the competitive scene or even your pubs, because frankly, I'm not even done with my patch analysis video. I'm not even done reading the notes, so I have no idea what's going to happen.
It's going to be crazy, and again, I can't wait to start playing it. And as far as the next podcast goes, guys, I'm not exactly sure just yet. Maybe makes sense after the regional qualifiers all wraps up and with the minor looking ahead. So probably be a couple of weeks from here. But enjoy 7.20 officially out of course, and I guess we're good to wrap on up. So from myself, also joined as always by Alchemy Elevated. You can check it out. The Twitters below our beautiful webcams right here. Thank you as always for tuning in. Enjoy the patch. We'll see you guys next time here on the DotA Procast. Until then, have a good night, guys.